Welcome everyone. Today we're going to skip over to sessions HBW 21 and 22. And this is going to give a lot of insight on what the Seth material is that was channeled through Jane Roberts. And we'll unravel a lot of the foundations of how reality works, what personality is, and a lot of other things. Y'all stay open, stay 100% skeptical. It's the only way that this can even be grasped. Because if you're not open on any amount, then it takes a while to understand this. So let's go ahead and begin.
This is session 1508, session 21 with HBW on 11/19/85.
Now, there's a lot of energy here right now, which I think wants to be expressed. So maybe I just go ahead and tune into the various energy fields and see what comes out.
Alright, very good.
Now, here's still the front energy here. What I perceive now is that there is a choice between focusing on a channel aspect or focusing on a more aggressive, outgoing aspect of doing this. Now, this depends on whether my main focus is on that part of myself which is still focused here, or on that part of myself which is giving up and, as it were, tuning into these other energies. So I have a choice right now here whether I do this as a channel rather, or I do this in an active way that stays here with this main waking consciousness, part of which is then tuning into these other energies, you see. Actually, it would be very much the same thing, except there are two different aspects to that.
Two different affects?
Aspects. Like the active, aggressive aspect, or the more passive, allowing aspect of doing this.
And do you have a preference for which of those ways you go today?
Well, maybe to begin with, I try this channeling mode as this was introduced earlier this morning.
Alright, very good.
Now, this is still the friend energy speaking, and let's dwell a little bit more on the energy which is called consciousness. This energy is flowing freely into the space-time realm, and then attracts various aspects by which this energy then, as it were, becomes a form and is noticed by what you call your waking consciousness. The energy itself comes with a very clean, undistorted mode, but then attracts various aspects that give it allowed a certain personality or character, which then can be known by the observers, you see. Now with Herald, he is in his perceiving channeling mode, allowing this energy flowing through, and then, as it were, with his words, his mental and emotional body adds and attracts aspects which are surrounding him to this energy, which then is expressed in the words you can hear. Now with Herald, he is open to many other, as it were, clean or pure energies which can be channeled through him by attracting these aspects, or into which he can tune into, as it were, and observe it with his individuality is still based in space and time. Now we're talking right now through him, as we said before, while he is still in his channeling or passive observing mode, allowing this energy to flow freely, which is happening right now, and which he chooses to do so based on the experience this morning. In his past, he has done that also, but he was not aware of this, as he felt his main purpose is to actively, aggressively go out, leap the physical restrictions, and perceive for himself, find out for himself, which he did in a certain way, but hindered or colored by the aspects he took with him doing so. Now, these aspects, on the other hand, he used while he was going out to find various sources of information. These aspects helped him to tune into certain energy fields he felt familiar with, like the Seth energy field he was talking about in his last sessions, you see.
Yes, I think I'm understanding that. And is the plan for today to have the friend continue to communicate through Herald?
Well, this is not friend as such talking. This is the friend energy which Herald was tuning into during lunch break as he was talking about his experience this morning. Now, we do feel that there should be a chance for these other energies that surround Herald to have a word here too, as it were, aspective energies, as the clean energy of these sources had attracted various aspects to themselves and then appear in a certain way when Herald tunes into them. Do you see?
Oh yes, I understand that.
Now, there's a very strong pull at this moment for Herald to tune into this Seth-like energy field he was tuning in during the last sessions. So let's give him a chance of doing that right now.
All right, very good.
Now, this is the energy field which was described as the Seth energy field as such, but in fact the Seth energy is just a limited part of this enormous energy, or an aspect as it were. Now, Herald had a need to tune into this energy here because he has such a big need for expression in what you call the space and time realm. He wants on one hand very much to get in touch with higher energies and to understand the true nature of reality as it were in being, but also he has a strong desire to express all he perceives and as it were subconsciously knows, to express this to other people in a way that makes sense to them and helps them to lead a different life, and as it were a life of more understanding, a more controlled life, and more maybe purposeful and powerful life. So when he had read the first Seth books as it were some while ago, he felt very strongly deep inside how much truth in these books was to be found, and therefore he concentrated on tuning into this energy quite subconsciously, also during his sleeping states, and passing on this knowledge or truth as it were that he found onto his friends and to the people who listened to him. He himself had a big advantage in doing so, as it helped him personally to control his life to a very large degree and radiate this sense of control to other people so that they got affected and in turn tried to do the very same thing. And Herald was aware of that, and actually he realized that this was the driving power behind what he felt was an urge to get into this Seth consciousness. In fact, he had a subconscious feeling, a subconscious drive to get in touch with what he thought was the Seth energy or the Seth entity, which he didn't, but he did tune into this Seth consciousness, of which the Seth, as you heard of, is only an aspect or a part. Now, Herald's main concern was to understand the basic difference between an individuality as it exists as a duality in space and time and what you might call an identity. Now, he has found the meaning of both. Also, better say that his tremendous drive for expression here in space and time and the putting forward of knowledge to his friends and to people who listened to him led him to consciously, as he understood it, leave what you might call space and time and get in touch with other reality systems, with other systems or dimensions of reality which were very alien and strange to him first, but which he could to a limited degree understand and grasp while he was touching and tuning into these. You see, these journeys, as it were, gave him a lot of self-confidence and led to the point where he was able not just to leave the restrictions of his physical body in order to leave space and time as you understand it and get in touch with other realities, but it also led to the point where he was able to leave the restrictions of his physical body and get in touch with other aspects or manifestations of space and time itself, understand and put them together in a way that is unique to his experience so far. Also, let us mention here that Herald's longing for the truth, as it were, attracted many other energies which are much closer to what you would call the physical time and space sphere, energies of entities that are not incarnated, as it were, in a physical body, but are still pretty close to this physical realm with their drive for expression, and they very often use Herald and Herald's body to express themselves by talking freely through him to other people, to his friends, and to people who listen to him. And there are many, many different energies, and it's very hard to identify them once in a while, and they come in clusters and not only in pure form. Now, actually, these energy might appear as aspects as they, when they come through Herald, attract aspects of himself, aspects which surround the physical manifestation of Herald, and therefore color the information. Do you follow?
Yes, I do. Let me check to make sure. I'm understanding you to say that the other energies, the close to Earth energies that were attracted to Herald because his longing for the truth, have used Herald in a sense to speak their interests, and also have collected aspects of a great variety.
This is very much so, but you must remember at this point that they did do that not just for self-expression, but also they did it to add certain aspects of knowledge and truth to Herald's consciousness, as it were, or as it was expressed in space and time. So in fact it was quite beneficial to Herald as a whole also, you see.
All right, very good.
Now, also, as Herald was tuning into this pool of consciousness, as it were, he was attracting, as he got used to the ideas of simultaneous time, he was attracting aspects of himself which you could say are based in his future or have been based in his past. So very often energy flow freely through Herald that are actually based in his future and his past and get mixed to an energy flow which again is very hard to describe and to differentiate, you see. When Herald speaks, very often all these energies get mixed and become a model, as it were, of energy and truth that flows freely through him and are therefore not always easy to understand and to follow up. Sources of energy, as it were, get mixed, you see.
Yes, and what is the impact of this on Herald?
Well, as I mentioned before, as Herald is experiencing all that, his pool of experience gets enlarged tremendously. He is not just tapping into one pool of energy or one source of energy, but in many at the very same time. So, basically, in your terms, he is saving time having experiences, you see.
Yes, it's interesting.
Now, again, he is not only tuning into the energy pool that has been described as friends, and this energy pool that has been very wrongly identified as the Seth energy, but he's also tuning into energy fields or dimensions of reality which are quite alien to him and to you, and which cannot be understood at this moment in time, as they, so to say, have no inclination to make themselves known through Herald as a channel. So what happened in the past was that Herald was able to tune into these dimensions of reality and was able to give his limited degree of understanding, putting forward what he found. But again, this was very much colored by his various aspects and his conscious understanding as it was at that moment in time. But, however, there might be and there will be a time in future where Herald is able to tune into these different dimensions of reality in a much deeper way and gain knowledge to a degree which has not been heard of so far.
This would be a worthwhile thing for Herald to do.
This is not a matter of choice anymore, because Herald already tapped into this reality systems and, as it were, to say it in a humorous way, got stuck there, you see. He has always now his subconscious longing to get in touch with this reality systems again, and to answer your question, it will be not beneficial, as it were, to Herald, but it will be very enlightening to him and to these people who will listen to him, as it were, his friends.
By calling them alien energies, this sounds like something difficult to deal with. Do I misunderstand that?
Oh. Now, to put it into terms that you might understand, when I say alien energies, I mean energies of a structure which are very hard to describe by means of words or images that make sense to you, you see. All your words or ways of imagining things cannot grasp this sort of energy, as it were. They don't make sense as such to your common sense, you see. And therefore I call them alien, because a description of these energy forms or reality systems does at this moment in time not make sense to a form of consciousness which is still focused on what you call space and time. Now Herald will learn to just keep a very minor part of that consciousness which has been expressed in space and time here, while a large part of it will mix into these different forms of reality in future, in his personal future, as it were, and there will be an understanding which can hardly be expressed in words, but can be put over to his friends and people to listen to him by what you call non-verbal communication. As it were, part of the consciousness which he will as it were, adopt to the part of consciousness being expressed in space and time. This consciousness that he will adopt can be put forward in what you call nonverbal communication, and therefore can enlighten some people who get in touch with Herald's consciousness, his friends or people who listen to him, as it were. You see?
Yes. And you're speaking of this occurring sometime in Herald's present physical life.
Yes. As a matter of fact, in your time terms, this will be before very long. Now, I know that his conscious aspect, which is listening and focusing on space and time at this very moment in time, is listening to these words and being very doubtful about it, But let us say to this conscious part of Herald, which is listening now and being very doubtful, not to worry about, because as we said before, it's not a matter of choice anymore, because he chose already this track of his experience, as it were, you see.
Are there things that Harold can do that will aid in this process or prepare him for this process?
Well, as it were, we would advise Herald, and maybe you can stress this point once he is getting out of this booth, he has to allow, as we feel, a certain amount of time per day to allow parts of the consciousness of his that is focused on space and time to wander off, as it were, to get close to these different reality systems or dimensions of reality and get used to it, you see.
All right, we'll encourage him to do that.
I know at this moment in time he is grinning deep inside, or let's say this conscious part which is following the conversation over which he has no control at this moment in time. This part of his is grinning, saying, well, who knows, but just tell him what you heard from us and encourage him that way.
All right, we will certainly do this.
Now let me kindly interrupt you at this moment and encourage you to ask questions which are not necessarily in regard to Harold's experience, if you choose to do so.
Yes, I would like to know about the impact of having an additional person in the booth with Harold, whether that is a positive or a negative thing in helping him communicate through the channel to communicate.
Yes, indeed. The reason for this being that that person called Marie, who is with Herald in the booth right now, has got aspects about herself who that are very much used to the idea of channeling information rather than playing this aggressive, active part of tuning into, you see. And Herald, being close to this kind vibration of hers, now is also tuning into these aspects of Marie's, and therefore has less trouble to allow this quite spontaneous channeling to happen, you see. Herald, in his past, has not been willing a lot, we must say, to allow other energies to flow through. He always thought he has to be in charge and control of things, and was not willing very much to give up, as it were, as he feels about these things. But with Marie being close to him, he feels much more sure to do this right now, and, as it were, he's doing a fine job. Don't you think?
I think he's doing an excellent job. We're very, very pleased. We have been aware of his reluctance or his tendency to see channeling in a rather negative sense.
Well, I don't think he did consider these channels, or let's say the process of channeling, to be dangerous, but his way of looking at it was, I can do it myself, and in fact he did. But on the other hand, you see, parts of his consciousness that was focused in space and time always had a longing to go beyond his consciousness. And, as it were, Herald very, very hard tried to ignore these aspects, as it were, who have been with him for a long time. But now, as it were, meeting Marie and friend has helped him, as it were.
Yes. Is there anything else that we can do in the laboratory that will improve his ability to do this kind of work?
Well, I think Harold's problem in the past was that he tried to analyze with his intellect, as it were, the information he was tuning into, and therefore he was blocking the flow. You see, not actually blocking, but he was shutting parts of the flow off, So he only allowed that part of information flow through him where there have been aspects around him which were used to cluster around his energy and made him feel familiar, friendly with the information, as it were, you see. Now, as he is going into this channeling mode, these other energy fields have now a chance to put forward information which might be quite, let's use again the term alien to Herald, and he might think, well, that sounds pretty strange, but in fact he doesn't care anymore being in that mode. So I think the channeling mode would be very, very beneficial to him, let's say, in close future anyway. The story about this Oriental chap appearing one night in his bedroom, and that this Oriental chap told him not to listen to anybody, and he misunderstood or misinterpreted it that way, that he felt, well, I have to find out myself, I'm not listening to any source anymore. But in fact, this is not what this entity, so to say, meant when he said that to Herald. But anyway, Herald got off this track now, and we are quite happy that he did.
Yes, very good. I'd like to ask some questions of you. You present yourself as the larger energy from which Seth was an aspect. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you could put it that way.
Uh-huh. And can you describe yourself to us a little further?
Well, you see, we energy have been around what you call the space and time realm from the very start, before space and time was created, as it were, in your terms. But parts or aspects of our energy have been down, as it were, and this space and time continuum took physical form, not just human form, but all sorts of forms, and expressed themselves in this physical universe, as it were, and gained, therefore, a lot of experience concerning duality and creation of individuality, which is not to be found outside what you call space and time, you see. Now, Seth was one aspect of this gigantic pool of energy that, as it were in your terms, was always close by to the space and time realm, and has been expressed as Seth aspects, as it were, in many forms, in many lifetimes, and is now, as Seth, enlightening the people who are kind enough to listen to his voice, you see. Now, he was concentrating on mainly what he found out, expressing himself in space and time terms, and is putting forward this knowledge to those beings, and again here, not just humans, who are willing to listen to this enormous source of information that was created, as it were, through the experience of space and time. You see? So let me make one more point here in order to make this clearer. Seth has been created by the very experience of aspects of this energy which is talking now, has been created by experiences of these aspects in space and time. So as it were, Seth has not existed before the space and time realm was created, but does exist, as it were, now as space and time has been created, but again has become an aspect of this pool that is talking right now, you see?
Yes. Is it?
Tell me, does this really make sense to you?
Well, I'm struggling, of course, but would it be appropriate to think of you as a group of energies of which Seth is one part?
Well, when you use the term group, it's one of those limiting earthly terms. However, if you consider a group to be an unlimited pool of energy, unlimited in space and time terms, unlimited in fact in terms of what you would call knowledge or awareness, then indeed we are a group of energy. But let me also this here. In your terms, there are groups of ourselves which have been expressed in space and time, as it were, but then again there's in your terms, a large part of this energy which has never been and will never be expressed in space and time terms, but in other realities, and in fact partially in those gigantic reality systems that Herald has tuned into in his past, you see? Do you follow?
Yes. Are there other parts of your energy that have expressed themselves in the same way that Seth has?
Oh yes, very much so.
And is Seth as a component of your energy now expressing himself with others now that Jane Roberts has left physical form?
Well, let's put it this way. Seth, as experienced through the channel of Jane Roberts, does not exist anymore as such. However, Seth, that Seth that has been expressed in that channel, Jane Roberts, has changed his energy structure, and in those terms it still exists, of course, but he has changed to something else, and in fact he has, in your terms, split into different or new aspects that in turn are channeled at this moment in time through various channels in earthly terms. That is, Seth lives on, but he lives on through various channels at the same time and cannot be recognized as the Seth intelligence or entity anymore. Do you follow?
Yes.
So when people ask the question, is Seth still there? Yes, he is. And in fact, he is not at the same time, you see. It very much depends on the way you look at things. You follow?
Yes. Now the component of the total energy you represent that's speaking to us now.
Yes.
Is this component different from Seth in ways other than having been in physical form?
I see what you're up to. Well, let's put it this way. That part that he's talking right now through, as it were, this channel, Herald, and he is not used to this term, and in fact might be quite surprised listening to the tape later on that we call him like that, but as a matter of fact he has been a channel for many years, not being aware of that. But anyway, let's get back to your question now here. We are a mixture of energy structures at this moment in time, part of which have been expressed in space and time, and therefore are able to relate to you so perfectly, you see. But on the other hand, this mixture also is composed of a part of energy that has never been expressed in space and time. And in fact, if you would like that experience, so to say, we could separate that part that has not been expressed in space and time from that part that has been expressed in space and time as a matter of interest to you.
Yes, we're interested in that because we're interested in the ways in which the experience in space and time do affect an energy.
Well, now let's see. Now, this energy which is talking to you right now is that part of the energy that has been talking almost through all of this session, that part of the energy which has not been expressed in space and time. And as you will find, the color of the voice of Herald has changed to a tremendous degree, as it is not holding anymore the color of emotion, you see. As it not holding anymore the color of mind. So when we now talk as that part of Herald's energy which is general right now, that part that has not been expressed through space and time, we have a hard time, as it were, to identify with what you term emotion and thought or mind. So we might appear to you as a source which is very neutral in the energy coloring, you see?
Yes. It's easier for us to imagine a state of no emotion than it is to imagine a state of no mind.
Well, but this is because most of the times you are not aware that thoughts as well as emotions are created by that part of your consciousness that is focused in what you term space and time. Also, as long as you are consciously focused in what you term as the space and time continuum, you are not able to cast off, as it were, thoughts and emotions, and therefore the consciousness you identify with is always colored, at least to a limited degree, by what you call space and time, you see. It is only that part of your consciousness that is able to split off, as it were, from the rest of the consciousness you identify with in your everyday life. It is only then that this part is able to leave the coloring mode, the attraction of the colors of thoughts and emotions, and perceive something that is beyond your conscious understanding, to perceive something which has never been colored by what you understand as space and time, and to put it in French terms, is not aspective.
Can you tell us why some parts of your consciousness would wish to come into physical form?
Well, to put it into very simple terms, if parts, and I use now the term parts, knowing that it's not a proper term, as there cannot be parts of something which is not limited, you see, but there is no other word for it which might make sense to you, so I use the term part for now, saying that when a part of this pool of consciousness is penetrating the color pool of space and time, and in fact it appears like a very colorful pool to us, this part experiences coloring. It gets colored, therefore goes through a change of thought and emotion, and when it leaves this color pool, so to say, it takes away the imprints of the coloring, and therefore adds something to the whole which is very hard to describe. It's like we as a whole expressed ourselves in what you would call a new mode, you see. It adds to our awareness in a certain way which could be let's say, termed a learning process, but in fact it's not so much a learning process as a change of awareness. And again, not in terms of expanding awareness, but as I said, change of awareness. You see, the ever ongoing process of creative change has been expressed in this colorful pool of space and time, and therefore adds to the whole, you see.
Yes, so the what we might call parts of the energy that have experienced the time and space do affect the whole pool of energy.
Indeed. But again, don't think of a part as a limited degree of the whole, because it is not, you see. If a part of this unlimited energy pool enters what you call the space and time realm and leaves what you call the space and time realm, it gets absorbed by the whole and is no longer a part.
Yes, my head understands that, I believe, but
I believe so.
A hard concept for us. Are there many pools of energy like yours in the universe?
Yes, indeed. In your terms, they cannot be numbered.
Is it appropriate for us to think of those pools of energy as representing some sort of a hierarchy of development?
Well, you see, your term of hierarchy involves considering something less and minor, or higher and bigger.
Yes.
Now, this is not the case. Let me maybe put it this way. All that is differs by change. Now, whatever the change might be, it never becomes less or more. It just becomes an ever-changing creative process expressed, you see.
Well, then there is no scale of development, so to speak, that some an energy pool, for example, gets more and more experienced so that it somehow encompasses more of the information or more of the knowledge available.
Indeed, there is not. You see, you might feel that this colorful pool of space and time is a very important thing, but in fact, let me tell you, it is not. Or let's say it is. It doesn't matter, you see. There are so many different reality systems which are just as colorful, so to say, not implying space and time, not implying anything you know of, but implying different, or as it were, alien things. And I like this term because it doesn't say anything, you see. Implies alien aspects that cannot be grasped by you, but which are just as valid or not as valid as the colorful pool of space and time. So to say, to put it in your terms, it's a matter of choice, but in itself got no value. I mean, this is very hard on the human brain, I think, because
it is.
The human brain is used to think in value systems, you see. Now, there is no such thing as a value system.
I think what gets us into this kind of thinking is that we see ourselves on a path, and paths by definition go somewhere, and we see ourselves perhaps as developing, as learning more and more somehow, and therefore getting to some point where we are more knowledgeable. And that's the kind of thinking that we engage in that gets us, I think, thinking about this hierarchy.
Well, you see, learning, when you talk about learning, you imply that you learn something that you do not know and do not have, you see. Now, as a matter of fact, whatever you, in your terms, might learn, you have got already anyway. But the awareness about or on what you learn is changing, you see.
Yes.
So, as a matter of fact, you are not going anywhere, and you're not learning anything which is new to you, but you're just, in your terms, developing a different awareness about what you think you do learn. Does that make sense to you?
All right, and then would that continue to be true once we pass from the time-space dimension?
Yes, to my understanding, as a source of energy which has not been in what you call space and time, to my understanding, the answer to this question would be, it is true to all energy dimensions I did come across so far. And let me make this point. When I say I came across so far, what I mean is what has been included in my awareness, expressed in my awareness so far. Now let me also say one thing. As the conscious part of Herald, which is listening to me right now, is saying, well, but that implies time. And Herald, in your terms, of course, is right, but in fact he isn't right. When you look at it from a perspective that does not imply space and time, you see, changing awareness is not dependent on time. In fact, as change in itself is not dependent on time passing by. But I don't like to dwell on this further, as I do know that on the human brain you cannot think of change and development without implying time at the very same time, as it were. So I do feel we should not try and dwell on this subject of no time change any longer.
All right. It's difficult for us to ask questions without that context, and let me try to take that out of it and just ask if there are times in times again. If there occur for each of us experiences of much greater awareness than we have now.
Well, the answer to these questions would be yes. But let me make also a comment here. You are having experiences of an expanded awareness all the time. However, that part of consciousness which is focused on this tremendous colorful pool of space and time, as it were, is not aware consciously of that, you see. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, but that implies that
what you actually
we might be in other states. Might be more aware.
Well, let's put it into a little bit different words. You see, all the time you are in a state of a heightened awareness. However, that part of the energy of yours which is focused on space and time has absorbed many aspects of what you call emotions and thoughts. Now these emotions and thoughts as aspects which group around your true and pure energy stop you from becoming consciously aware of these states of heightened awareness. But that doesn't mean that they are not taking place, you see. You see what I'm talking about?
I think I do. I'm trying to ask, though, that there, after we leave the conditions of time and space, will those, all of that be available to us?
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But again, when you talk about heightened state of awareness, it doesn't mean a larger degree of awareness, it just means a different degree of awareness, which you're not used to at this moment in time, as your main focus is on the aspects of emotions and thoughts, and therefore the creating process of material things.
It seems as though in energies choosing to come into time and space, they have to agree to a very limited awareness during that period.
You see, when you enter this most colorful pool of space and time, you, in a way, learn to focus on these colors of emotions and thoughts to a degree that somewhat shuts you off from the awareness, in your terms, that you had before you actually entered the pool. And this is because if you hold the level of awareness you used to have before you entered space and time, if you hold that level of awareness, you would not be able to perceive the colors of emotions and thoughts and expressing them at the very same time in your terms, you see.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That makes sense?
Well, I feel like I understood what you said, yes. This has been a very most interesting session for us, and we're going to have to close the session now. I hope it will be possible for us to communicate again in the near future.
I think this is most likely in your terms. Trying to make a little joke here.
Yes. Thank you very, very much for speaking
now,
with us today.
Let me say one thing before we close. Herald, who is in the channeling mode, he would like some time to tune into various energies that surround him at this moment in time before you close the session. So maybe allow him another minute or so to get friendly with his energies, and then kindly ask him to come back.
All right, very, very good, and thank you very, very much.
You're most welcome. Now, this is the friend energy, and we just want to add one point. We want to say that we are most pleased with what Herald has been gone through today. And we again want to remind you to let him know that it is very important that for his development, so to say, that he concentrates on these states of channeling mode.
All right, very good. Thank you, friend energy.
So, as Fran says, good day.
Good day to you, friend.
Now, there is another little energy that just wants to make his point. I am a part of the various energies that occasionally talk through Herald, and I just want to say here that I am responsible for the healing activities you might have noticed around Herald, and we just would like you to remind Herald that he should not give up these, as they offer us a way of expression which might be beneficial to other people also.
All right, very good. We're glad to be in touch with you, and we will pass that message on. This is a continuation of 1508 HBW21. Harold, are you ready to begin coming back now?
I think I am.
All right. I want you to no rush, but bring yourself back gradually to a focus 10 and let me know when you're there.
I think I'm back to 10.
All right, very good. I want you to count back with me now, and as you do, I'm going to put in a little bit of a grounding sound. 10,
10,
9,
9,
8,
8,
7.
7.
Remember that as you return to normal waking consciousness, you will be feeling in a state of alertness, awakeness. Be well grounded. All your senses will be working brightly and beautifully. You'll be feeling balanced and harmonious. 6,
6,
5,
5,
4,
4,
3,
3,
2,
2,
and 1.
1.
1, awake and alert.
Awake.
Get
Alert.
Marie to say 1 also.
Marie, would you say 1 also?
Yes, I can back with you.
Okay, very good. We'll be in a moment.
Yes.
This is Herald talking.
Okay.
Howard.
Whoever it is,
Who's Howard?
settle down here. The thing is jumping around.
One of the
here.
minor aspects.
Okay, he's all hooked up, not
Okay. All right, very good. You hearing me in your right ear, and you hearing
Yes,
me in your left ear?
sounds good.
Okay. Okay, all comfortable there?
Yes.
All right, very good. We'll put some sound in now.
Can you hear me, Rick?
Yes.
Let me know when you hear the sound.
The sound could be up a little bit. Not the surf, the sound.
I haven't got the sound in yet.
Oh, I see.
So we're adding the sound now to the surf, and let me know when this is good.
Yeah, the sound is good. The surf could be lower, actually.
All right. How about that?
Yeah, the sound could be now lower a little bit too.
Okay. This is the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, and I think that this beam of conscious energy I feel is actually attached to that, let's say, spot of my energy body where the imprint has been made. So I guess this might be energy.
I see. All right. Very good. And are you going to choose among these today? Or,
I think what I will do is maybe I just open up and see whatever might happen then.
all right.
Now, hello out there. This is the friend energy talking. Today we will demonstrate once more how different energy fields and pools of consciousness can be channeled through one channel, as is Herald doing right now here.
Very good.
First, let me introduce to you these various energy pools that are present today, including myself, so that you might understand more easily what is happening later on, and do allow these various energy fields then to introduce themselves and maybe to go on talking through Herald for a while before you ask questions to him.
Very good.
Now, let's start with the energy pool, which has called himself yesterday the Sethian energy pool. Now, hello out there. Once again, we are here talking through Herald, and we send our regards, especially this time, to Maury, who is sitting out there and who is thinking about us in, well, let's say, a very limited way. Is that not so, Maury? Speak up there.
That's very true.
All right, I see you got, well, today let me maybe help get rid of this misunderstanding, so to say. As we made our point yesterday, many people think of that entity that called himself Seth as an entity that has been incarnated for many, many lifetimes and has gathered information through their own personal experience, and who then in turn, based on his own personal experiences, discovered various laws of space and time, and was in fact trying through the channel of Jane Roberts to put this forward to people who wanted to listen to her and friends everywhere. Now, this energy called Seth was only an aspective energy that originally had been part of this unlimited energy pool, which is way beyond what you understand as space and time, but has chosen, as it were, to go into this gigantic game of polarity of space and time in order to experience that aspective energy that was not part of this energy pool beforehand, and after this was done, the self-energy, as it were, was absorbed, as we said before, in this energy pool, so that the experience of the aspective experience, in fact, got absorbed by the whole and transformed into something, in your terms, much higher. Now, you see, Jane Roberts sometimes was channeling an aspect that called himself Seth too. Now, Seth too was, in fact, not as much a part of space and time as Seth 1 was, and as we said before, Seth 1 did not exist before he entered the space and time realm, but as it were, was created in space and time itself, you see. Now Seth 2 never was created in space and time, but chose to be an aspective energy on, as it were, the threshold of this space and time polarity game, as it were, trying to give some additional information to what Seth was putting forward. But in turn, in doing so and in being understood or misunderstood, as it were, you see that, he was becoming aspective also. Also, he was not being part of the space and time game. Do you follow?
Yes.
Right. Now, how do you feel about it, Maury? What does that do to you?
Well, I don't understand the question. I have, I've had the idea that just using the analogy, I've said this a number of times, that the space and time concept of the earth plane is like a prison, and I felt that the Sethian discourses were lessons on how to get along in that prison in the best way to take advantage of the experience without any thought of going beyond space and time.
Well, now you see, Maury, where you were misled, so to say, and I don't really like to use this term, but I feel it might be appropriate to make this point here. Where you have been misled is Seth, as such, was not an independent entity that entered space and time, went through the wheel of reincarnation, as you might call it, and left space and time, then giving information about what he had experienced and understood. You see, Seth as an entity was never an independent entity, but was mere an aspect entity, as it were, of a pool of energy consciousness way beyond space and time. And therefore, as you said, his teachings mainly dealt with the rules played between the main aspects of the polarity. In fact, the plus and the minus poles of this polarity game. However, by being attached still being attached to this enormous pool of energy beyond space and time, much of his teachings have had a much higher quality that have not been perceived by you yet. But as it were, as you listen to friend very carefully, as you do, especially trying to transcribe the sessions and putting them into order, as it were, what you might perceive as order, you might find when you read the Seth material once again that much of what Friend says has been hinted at by Seth's teachings also. Now, I'm saying this because I want to give you a hand in fighting your judgmental attitudes towards channel material as has been hinted at by Friend this morning, you see.
That's fine. That's what I'm looking for.
Fine, fine. I made this point here, and I'm very glad that you follow. Now, you see, in the booth there are these two channels called Herald and Marie, and let me say here that these two channels indeed, as Friend has mentioned this morning, have an energy link which is quite extraordinary, and at this moment in time, when they are holding hands, I do feel that Marie is very much in touch with this energy source that is being expressed by this present voice that is talking to you. Now, Marie, speak up. Do you feel that this is so?
Yes, this is quite correct. We are indeed in alignment with that which is going on, and we are in complete agreement with that which is being expressed through the channel.
Very well now. I think at this point we might allow for some questions that may be related to the channels, as it were, Marie and Herald, or questions, as it were, that concern other matters that might be of interest.
Very good. We've sent some questions in Herald about whether or not the channeling is a good thing for him to be doing, and if so, ask whether or not he's going about it in the right way.
Well, you know, Herald, as it were, has been channeling for many years. However, as he was afraid of ever becoming a channel because he felt he might lose his sense of power, and sometimes, you know, he's quite a stubborn head, as are some people present here, as it were. However, Herald has been channeling for many years, and we chose not to maybe bring this point into his conscious understanding, as we were afraid he is backing away from it and, as it were, lost to us, you see. Actually, our energy has been close to him all the time, as we said yesterday, he was seeking for a truth that was behind the teachings he has heard and read about so far, and this also applies to the Seth teachings. As it were, Herald read the Seth teachings, but in the beginning fell asleep very often doing so. Now, the reason for this being that he understood not just what he read, but also consciously was in touch with the energy source that, as it were, was behind the Seth entity, passing on that knowledge, you see. Now, we decided to
as it were, drag him out of his waking consciousness, so to allow him, without being afraid, to get in touch with the, as it were, higher qualities of the teaching, what he actually has done. Now, the question you're asking, or the question that Herald has been asking, is a quite peculiar one, because, as I said, he has been channeling all these years when he was giving his lectures, and actually the private sessions and the workshops. And very often we know he was very surprised about what he has said, because he wondered where it came from. You see, very often he made a point and was really dwelling on it for quite a length of time, and then when there came a question out of the audience and the energy stream was blocked, he was quite puzzled, because he hardly could remember what he had said beforehand, and therefore he had a hard time to answer the question, you see. So he had to learn, on the other hand, to open up again and get the energy flow going, so that he was able to, as it were, answer the question out of the audience, which he had done. Now, to answer your question, I think it is important at this point in Herald's life that he becomes aware that he is not just able, as he thought so far, to reach out with his consciousness into other realities and to find out with his stubborn head what is going on out there, and bringing back a very limited knowledge and understanding, colored by the various aspects he is carrying around, but that it is time now for him to open up completely, as it were, and to let other energies enter his system freely, so that he can get in touch with this knowledge, not being colored by the thought aspect and the emotional aspect of his earthly being, you see. Herald has gained quite a great deal of detachment, as it were, in space and time, and therefore this attachment allows him to absorb the energy flow coming from various sources in a pretty, as you might put it, pure way. And this pure way then in turn becomes effective only when Herald is trying to put it forward to other people, as he is doing, in fact, you see. Now, again, to answer your question, and you might put this forward to Herald later on, as he might only remember very dull what we have said. You might tell Herald that it might be, in fact, an excellent idea, and in fact it's not his own idea, but we did put it into his head. It might be an excellent idea to sit down, maybe not every day, because he won't do that anyway, but maybe twice or three times per week, sit down quietly, or lay down, as it were, in his new study upstairs at home, listening to the Superflow tape he made himself, and having a tape rolling that might be recording whatever might come through. And in fact, we do feel that it's not just this source of energy that might be flowing through, but also the friend energy, and also other energies like the healing aspect, and as it were, some clairvoyant aspects in Herald that might be of great value to certain people who listen to him, and especially, as it were, to two very close friends that are in fact much closer to Herald as they and he might feel. When he is going to listen to this tape, he will know who we are talking about, as it were. You see?
Yes, all right, very good. Right, we've made notes on that since Harold, at least yesterday, did not remember all of the things that had come through.
I know, and in fact, this time he will even remember less, because as we keep on talking, that conscious part of himself, which is always present here and keenly watching everything that goes on, is becoming less and less as he is building up a trust towards himself and a trust towards the energies that freely flow through him, being channeled, as it were. You see?
Yes, very good. This has been a excellent experience for him this week in those regards, I guess. And you've been sounds like you've been directing some of that activity.
As a matter of fact, we did. And not just this time, but actually for many years. Harold has a tendency to think he is stuck. He is always stuck. No? Harold always feels he is not gaining anything, he is not making any progress. He has a tendency to be desperate, and sometimes he has a tendency of being depressed. But he keeps it to himself, and the depression only spreads deep inside, so it's hardly noticed by other people, except by one entity which is close to him, called Manuela, his very dear friend. And in fact, we very often impress her, as she is a highly sensitive creature, earthy being, which is a natural channel also without being conscious of it. We use her very often to put Harold back on the right track, and he, of course, is doing all that, but again, here, stubborn as he is, trying hard to ignore it, but without big success.
Very good. I'd like to ask about the things that we can do in the laboratory while he's here that will help in his development in these regards.
Well, we do feel that at this point there isn't much you can do for Harold, as we said yesterday, things are undergo now, and it won't be too long before Harold is able to tap into sources of energy which are, in your terms, quite outrageous and tremendous. But what you could do, and in fact what would be most precious to Harold at this point, is allow him to have as many sessions here in the booth with Marie, because as we pointed out yesterday, the Marie vibration as a channel has given a lot of trust to Harold and his capability of being a channel. And you see, as Harold is performing his channeling art with Marie, being close to him, you learn something about channeling which you would not do otherwise. And in fact, so does Marie. And as we say, we, as let's say, the Sethian energy field, do quite agree with the friend energies. And in fact, we have an agreement there which could only take place, as it were, because the overall energies of Harold and Marie coincide. Do you follow?
I think I understand that. the energies coincide, does that mean more than simply that there is an agreement between the two?
Well, in both entities we have a great deal of detachment, and therefore this detachment that is be found in both channels allows for a harmonized state of their aspects, and this harmonized aspect allows for anything to happen. You see, as it were, their belief structure seems to be like anything is possible. You see? And if you have built up a belief structure which allows for anything, there is no obstruction to be found except minor ones, and then these channels can be used for almost all sorts of phenomena you can think of. And they are, as it were, a perfect match that should perform together as many times as there is a chance in your earthly times. You see?
May we say that it is the bringing together physically of the opposites, the male and the female, as it were, in perfect harmony, blending together. It is as the one is the complement of the other in the unification, and so as the vibrations emanate on that non-physical, there is the bringing together of the oneness, even though you see the manifestation of the two physical bodies. On the non-physical realm, there is the agreement of the opposites. However, you see, on this non-agreement reality, it is being perceived over and above that which would be Herald as an individual and Marie as an individual, but in that these two could perceive those two energies in its individual state, and thereby have the two individual states be in harmony then in the operations and in the manifestations of then what you call the physical world. And this lesson here, or idea brought to the earth plane, would be again to bring in the opposites of the polarities existing within each individual's. Thank you.
Yes, that's very helpful comment for us.
Now you see how much we are in agreement.
Yes, indeed.
Now again, let's get back to Maury here. What do you think now?
Well, I'm tremendously pleased with what's been happening.
Oh, we are glad you're pleased. Now carry on.
I always attend these sessions waiting for some breakthrough for those of us that aren't as detached and have become encrusted with the concepts, the earthly concepts and thoughts and perceptions. And I'm even more enthused that this is going to happen very quickly in the not long distant future.
Well, now let's get back to you again, and let me make some comments which might be of tremendous help, as it were. We know that you were struggling for quite some time to get a certain sense of detachment, as it were. Now, as it were, but you had this longing for detachment on one hand, but on the other hand, you're desperately clinging on to your sense of attachment because you are afraid of losing the rock underneath your feet, as it were, you see. Now, Maury, when you pay attention to what you say all day long, you will find that 90% of what you say expresses attachment, and 8% of what you say expresses the longing for detachment, and only 2% of what you say is expressing detachment. You see? Now, what we would ask you to do is start now, and I mean right now, to watch your words and your thinking in terms of, am I judging? Am I putting values to what I do observe? You see? And doing that, ask yourself for half an hour per day and make notes on what you will find. And after a couple of weeks doing that, if you are persistent, and we dearly hope that you are persistent, you will find that your sense of attachment will become less. In fact, you will find that you cannot stop it from becoming less. Do you follow?
I follow, and I appreciate that advice. I always have one problem with becoming detached. I know I have a drive to become detached, but at the same time I concern myself with how that will affect people around me.
You know, now this is a misconception, and let us tell you why. You see, as you are concerned with other people, this in itself is expressing attachment. And now, what you do, subconsciously expressing it the way you did, is you do blame other people for not becoming detached. And doing that, in fact, you are enforcing your sense of attachment. Now, let us say this. The exercise we were suggesting, as it were, the exercise is valuable in itself. And we would ask you at this time not to think anymore about whether you are detached or attached or whether you are anything. Just go ahead and do this exercise and think as little as you can about it, you see? Because the very act of thinking and the very act of developing emotions is again attachment. You see?
Yeah, I understand that.
Do you?
I'll tell you in a few weeks I'll understand it better.
All right. This is exactly what I was getting at. You know, I was just pulling your leg now because I wanted you to say, I don't like to think about it now, you see? I don't even like to, as it were, develop emotions about it at this point, you see?
All right, fine.
Okay, now?
You do understand that that there's nothing you can say that will appear harsh to me, by the way.
Well, actually, let me say this. I do feel that certain things we are saying as a combined energy here might stimulate something that would be described in your terms as, let's say, disappointment, or let's say a little bit of being hurt. But again, these are just emotions and thoughts and nothing to worry about. And by the way, don't ask us whether we are aware of that, because of course we are.
Okay.
All right. Now, Rita, why don't you ask something here?
All right. Because you represent an energy pool which is far larger than the concept of Seth, it would be useful to us to have a better identifier for you, so that we don't call you by the Seth term.
I see what you're up to. You want to make us effective. Is that so?
You caught us again. It's very hard for us to avoid that. That's true. We don't wish to make you effective, but we think we might be better able to avoid that by not calling you the Sethian energy.
Well, as a matter of fact, now I want to say something that might be very surprising to you, as it were. I would like you to call us by the name of Herald. Now, what about that, huh?
All right. Let's see. That makes it a little complicated.
I know.
Herald and Herald. Herald has a bodily image for us. And,
yes,
and
indeed.
all of that. So,
but let me tell you here this. Herald has many, many lifetimes, as it were, taking place simultaneously. And because of his sense of detachment, he is well aware of all of these lifetimes that take place simultaneously on a subconscious level. And what you perceive as the earthly entity as Herald, in fact, is a pretty obvious, let's say, mixture of all these various lifetimes that are perfectly blending into what you perceive as Herald, with all his aspects as they appear at this moment in time. Now, you very rarely come across entities that are designed that way. You see, most of the times when you come across earthly entities, they are very much colored by the specific aspects of that specific lifetime, and you're not aware of the mixture of the other lifetimes that might be more or less dominant in that entity at any given time, because, as we said, they are colored by their aspects. Now, with Herald, this is not quite so. Herald is appearing to people who look at him in not a superficial way, as it were, but maybe in a deeper way, as a perfect blend of all these other lifetimes and of all the experiencing he was gaining during these lifetimes, and in fact still is gaining, you see. Now, this is the reason why we, as we channel our energy through Herald, would like to be called Herald, as he, as a summary, as it were, of the various lifetimes, do have a very tight link to this energy pool, and always had, as Maury in fact was suspecting some a month ago, as it were.
Well, when you say that he is Herald is a summary of his various lifetimes, what about the Herald that has never been in physical form?
Well, I don't quite understand the question because it does not make sense in our terms. Please, could you maybe put it into different words?
I understood you yesterday to say that your energy pool was made up of well, we used the word parts yesterday because that's understandable to us, even though that's not a good term. I understood that. But made up of parts that had experienced time and space dimensions,
Yes.
and those that had not.
Very true.
And so I'm wanting to talk to the whole pool.
You do, you see. We could use maybe the term Herald 1 and Herald 2. Now, what you're talking to right now at this moment in time could be called then Herald 2 if you prefer.
All right, would that be better than Herald Plus?
Well, you could call it Herald Plus. You know, it does not make any difference. You could call it Herald Minus also, you see.
Okay, Maury wants to make a comment.
I would ask Herald 2 or Herald Plus to please, when I play backgammon with just plain Herald, not to interfere.
Well, now let us make this point, Herald. To you, Maury. You see, last night, when you two, so to say, Herald 1 and Maury 1, as it were, when you two were playing backgammon, as you call this game, you have been in a state of attachment, you see, and Herald has not been. Now, Maury, I know what you're thinking, but please be patient and keep on listening to this for some longer while here. As you might have suspected, this last night was meant as a lesson to you. You see, let's make this point. You are a very experienced, let's say, gambler or player in many ways, if you have been playing for quite a number of years. Now, Herald, as a matter of fact, is what you would call an unexperienced dummy in that field. However, as he was in this state of detachment, he had access, as it were, to your own personal experience as Maury 1. And in fact, you, as Maury 1, you were beating yourself. Now, how does that sound to you?
It sounds perfect, and I recognized that while he was using me, an aspect of me was coming out, and I thought maybe that was the lesson. It was not a pleasant aspect for me.
Well, listen to this more carefully here, Maury. This was not the lesson. And the lesson was that a separation occurred between, as it were, various aspects of yourself, you see, and this separation helped Herald to absorb parts of your aspects and leave the parts that were no good with you see.
That son of a bitch.
Now, listen to this, Maury 1, as it were. In order to prevent that from happening, all you need to do is not to be attached to your aspects, just to let go and allow these aspects to become balanced, as it were, and then, as it were, do the same to Herald 1. If you can catch him being detached, attached, I had meant to say, but this won't be easy, you see. Do you follow?
Yes, I do.
Now, Rita, carry please on asking another question here.
Well, I want to, if we're going to use these terms, we have to be very careful about our definitions here on Earth. So I want to make sure that I understand what 1 and 2 are. Are we using the 1 now to represent the summary of the time of the lifetimes?
Yes, indeed.
And we're using 2 to mean the total energy.
No.
All right, let's get
not
that clear.
quite like that. You see, when I was talking about Herald 1, what I meant was Herald 1 is the Herald that you are familiar to and who happens to be the perfect blend of the other lifetimes of Herald. You see? Now, when I was talking about Herald 2, I mean the blend which is composed of the part of the energy pool that has never ever been in what you call space and time, and the part that has been in space and time and is resembled by Herald 1. You see?
Yes, it's a combination of the 2.
Now, let's make another point. When Herald 1 ceases to exist by leaving this plane of space and time, he is absorbed by the overall energy of this pool, Herald 2, and therefore will cease to exist as Herald 1, and so will indeed cease to exist Herald 2, because then the overall energy that has absorbed Herald 1 is transformed into something different to Herald 2. But again, these are all limiting earthly terms, as it were, and I don't think they might make such a lot of sense to your beloved intellect.
One way that you could approach the subject would be, again, to bring out that proverbial tree. You see, the tree, in its base essence, has the roots. Now, when you observe a tree in the forest, you do not see the roots. When you observe a tree from the trunk up, you do not see the essence of the sap and the pulp inside, other than what is surrounded in the bark substance. You see, now, so when you generally look at a tree, on one subconscious level, your aspects and your training will tell you that the tree has indeed a trunk and that the tree has an inside. You see, but when you glance at it, you only see the tree. You do not stop and think and see, and your awareness of the totalness of the tree is not that obvious. Now, you could take that as an illustration of what is trying to be expressed in the Herald 1, 2, 3, and so forth. The Herald 1 might be the tree that you see, where you do not see the trunk and the interior, but only the bark on the outside with the leafy dressings, the leaves of personality projecting itself, you see. So it is when you can see the proverbial tree in its essence, and simultaneously will you be able to see the roots that in one sense bring to the nourishment from the earth and the substances to so produce that which you are seeing. There are many essences and energies taking place to produce that which you see as Herald 1.
Ah, very well said, very well said.
Yeah, it seems to us when we look at our fellow earthlings that we sometimes see more than their present lifetime. I have this experience with Herald of seeing him in another lifetime as well,
which would be what?
What was the lifetime?
Yes.
A lifetime in which we were both participants, close, intertwined, and also one in which Bob Monroe was present. And my point here is simply that we sometimes see a little more than the person who seems to be here in physical form and with this psychological characteristics and so on, but we don't begin to see the energy pool you're talking about.
Well, let me say this to you then here. You're right. You're very right indeed, as you and Herald have been together in fact, not just one lifetime, but many lifetimes, and so, as it were, has Maury. You know, now when you look at when you look as an earthly entity and you perceive the outer shell, the physical expression of the aspects plus the core, as it were, sometimes you might be able to see superimposed shadows of vibrational patterns, as it were, of other lifetimes that happen simultaneously. You see, when you manage by looking at the outer expression of a person, you might be able to shift your focus quite minutely and then tune into another lifetime and perceive it at the very same time, as in fact Herald 1 here is doing very often when he gives these private consultations to his client. Detachment, he is able to tune into the various layers of energy that with an earthly entity being expressed in physical form in one specific lifetime. But let me say this here, so can you. You see, all you need to do in order to master this skill, as it were, is to practice your sense of detachment.
Now, to overcome that which is the time-space element, the way may we say, the time-space in the explaining, using the verbal context of past lives. You see, now transcend the past lives, and that appears, you say, we were in many lifetimes in the past. Now, you see, these lifetimes are occurring at this precise moment as we all are participating in this experience. we as our energy and the channels as their energies. Now, all of the aspective energies of the channels, all of the aspective energies of those participating in the control room at this particular time, simultaneously, each of the aspects participating in this is simultaneously participating in that which you would call other lifetimes. When you transcend that which you are perceiving now and see the similarity, the simultaneously that is taking place now, you perceive it in time space as being that which has already occurred instead of as it is occurring now. Do you see?
Yes, again, very well put by my friend.
Yes, we have heard this information many times, and it's a hard concept for us to recognize, but we accept that it is so.
Still sticking to your hierarchy, huh? Yes, carry on.
Yes, well, from what you've said, then I see that you represent both Herald 2 and Seth 2. Is that correct?
You see, let me make this point. It's not quite as easy. Now, Seth 1 ceased to exist, as he is not being channeled anymore, you see. Now, Seth 2 only could exist by means of Seth 1, as Seth 2 and Seth 1 were peculiar and particular aspects of this overall energy pool. Now, these energies you are talking about are part of this energy pool now, having been absorbed, as it were, and therefore are also talking to you at this very moment in time by this voice of Herald 1. But, you see, they don't talk to you as Seth 1 and 2. They talk to you in a different way, as these energies are blending in now with this energy that is talking.
The voice speaking to me, I identify now as Herald 2.
Yes.
And Herald 2 now and encompasses these other energies. However, you don't encompass all other energies.
Again, this is not easy to put in earthly terms, you see. We are an energy, a conscious energy field which has got a sense of identity, which is not to be mixed up with a sense of individuality, which implies polarity, you see. Now, there are many innumerable conscious energy pools which have got an identity. I think this answers this question, or would you like to make a comment, my friend here?
It is with the earthly concept of non-being that the difficulty of understanding and penetrating those aspects, the belief in the continuance of the personality, believing that the personality is some a projection of that which is occurring when the individual leaves the physical body. You see, first, before the transcending of this understanding of identities, in the fact of Seth became an individual. Seth took on a personality. Seth became aspective and had many individuals who projected images and life and credibility into his being. And now for him to be annihilated would admit to any individual that so they could be annihilated. You see, and so it is his holding on to the individual personality, not fully understanding what the individual personality is, that poses the problem of grasping the oversoul, of grasping the ability to unite and be all-knowing without holding on to the ident of Herald 1 or Herald 2. And that if Herald 2 exists, what happens to Herald 1? You see, and so it is when the understanding of the consciousness as a whole, in understanding its physical life sojourn, in going through the various stages of one lifetime and grasping that idea, and then perceiving it simultaneously, and then putting that idea into what is called many lives and having them be able to occur simultaneously, thereby all exists without a differentiation into individualism, and yet there is a whole essence of knowing the totality of all experiences along with that. And so that would be what one would need to work on when one becomes blocked in understand. It is what you perceive yourself as of being right now, of not existing. So it is the projection of the spirit world of taking that name, that ident with you. And that is why in realms of the non-physical, when you seek for names, they do not exist there because they are not needed. There is the part of the whole without the differentiation. Immediately you begin to differentiate and name, you begin to section. You see, and it is hard for you as an individual to grasp that, and so you must grasp that you as an individual is a part of a whole, even if you would have to differentiate into that wholeness as being your physical body separated from some other physical body. As long as you see that separate and do not see the same in yourself as you do in the other, then you are differentiated and cannot grasp that what we are speaking of, and will seek to hold on to that identity and to prove that it exists as that personality, you see. It is the fear factor that keeps one from transcending and needing to know and have a name. You see, immediately that we give a name, the next inference was for us to explain that name. It was not accepted as given. It was immediately set about by many aspects as to why it was selected, what was the reasons for it to be selected. It could not be accepted without any projections, do you see?
Yes, I have several comments there. One is just one of the things about being an earthling and having emotions is that one of those emotions is joy, and this is one of the feelings I am having right now, that to have you two energy pools communicating with us in the same session is it's a very joyful feeling. The other, in relation to friends' comments there, that it's certainly that's all true. What a friend says that about our difficulties in these areas. However, one of the questions I was asking here, I think, is simply that I understand that Friend and Herald 2 represent different energy pools. They have each have identities that are separating them. Is that the case?
Well, I made my point here, but I would like again Friend to comment on that.
You see, again, it is the matter of a differentiation and accepting the act of the being for what it is. You acknowledge the fact that the two individuals are on in and participating of the physical world, one through a male body and one through a female body. Now we have tried to show you that these energies on another level, and using another level is a separating term, is in essence a part of one energy. Now you say you have an agreement here. Now when you have this agreement, there is no longer the separation. The only separation there would be a projection of male and female, and then the manifestation upon entering out into the physical world again. Now you see here you have an awareness of these two individuals that reach beyond that normal awareness. It has transcended the separation. Now it is being manifested through the two channels. Now as it is manifested, it automatically seeks the differentiation because of being part of the physical world. In its essence, it is the same. The reason that one enters in and then as it transforms its state and personifies through this individual and is so-called friends, then it is the same essence that transcends through that which is Herald, and transcends and participates in that differentiations of energies and co-creations, takes on the name of Herald too. You see, now immediately that we give it these two names, it becomes differentiated. As it becomes differentiated into the very entrance of the physical world. And so we would say to you that in our essence, we then vibrate at the same rate of energy as you perceive us through the manifestation of the translation through these channels into then the projections and translations into your comprehension. It becomes fragmented, but in its essence carry that same energy, and it is through that energy that lies at the base of all of the interpretations and the translations and the projections that will reach you in that inner state of knowingness, and through that build-up of energies, thereby will you one day reach out to our essence before it is differentiated in and through any channel. And thereby you will be your own channel. And then if you so determine, after the manifestation through you as a channel may become differentiated through the application of a name if you so desire.
Yeah. Now, I feel here that Harold's energy level is slowly dropping as he is not used to do an intense channeling as we do right now. So I do feel it's getting to the point where we would have to finish these sessions. However, there is these energy cluster Herald has been talking about yesterday, and I think we should give this energy cluster a chance to come forward as it is, in your terms, effective energy cluster, and make its point. I don't think today is a good time to get this tremendous pool of energy into which is perceived by Herald 1 as the fourth energy source today. However, let's give these energy clusters and various aspects of this energy cluster a chance to come through.
Very good.
Now, this speaking is the healing aspect of Herald 1. I am an aspect that has been around Herald in this lifetime, and in fact in many other lifetimes. Very often I am perceived as a blue glimmering light around Herald, and in fact Herald has perceived me as an aspect, as this blue glimmering light also. Now, Herald went through a time where he badly wanted to make everybody well. Wherever was sickness, he went there and tried to help wherever people were who were in need of advice. He went there and gave the advice. Whether these people wanted it or not, he didn't care. He just felt that that was the right thing to do. Now, as he is in touch with, let's say, broader levels of his being, he is not like that anymore. And nowadays, I don't have a chance so often to come forward and do my job. But still, I think Herald has a certain liking for me, and every now and then he gives me a chance to do my job, and sometimes I do it in quite miraculous ways, which are of course quite natural. Anyway, I just wanted to make this point that I am still around, hanging around, waiting for a chance to express myself as this healing light, which is a very light blue light. Now, there are other aspects of this cluster which might like to come forward shortly. Now, this is the green light about Herald, the so-called green aspect, which is with him most of the times. And actually, he is so aware of my vibration that in his past he colored all his personal environment green, as it were, light green, so that I was not just reflected around him, but also in his personal environment. And as Franz said before, the environment starts within, so I, as the green aspect, was the aspect that started the green environment around him, so to say. I am a very soothing energy, and this is why people who get close to Herald most of the times feel they get quiet and calm, and they do understand things better, and they don't worry as much as they used to do. I'm that energy that radiates all the time around Herald and makes people feel well. Now here's a pink energy also, and the I, as this pink energy that also surrounds Herald, I'm coming forward usually to cheer people up and give them what they interpret as love. Now, as I'm not hanging about all the time, I'm not perceived all the time, and some people think Herald is not radiating a lot of what you call love, but in fact, Herald is in many terms beyond that feeling of love. Now, you might be astonished and say, now what does that mean? Everybody tells us to love each other, and all these old schools of philosophy love each other. This is true, but they are not talking about me as this pink light of love. They talk about the let's put it in those terms, about the true love, which is a deep understanding of how things are. You see, a deep understanding of how all that is expressed in all these marvelous ways. Now, I, as a pink light, am love on the physical plane, and I am radiating sometimes, and as I said before, not very often times. So sometimes Herald is wondering, am I able to love, he wonders. In fact, he is, because I'm hanging about sometimes, but he has still to become conscious of the term that this physical love, expressed very often as a pink radiant light, is a love that is actually a creation of space and time, and as he has developed this sense of detachment, is not able to express this pink love all the time as other people might have been used to. Now, there is also the white light around Herald. I, as the white light, allow Herald all the change and the detachment he needs in order to fulfill his intentions. I surround Herald all the time. I'm with him, and I, as it were, balance out the various aspects so that they have a most beneficial on Herald 1. I can perceive around Herald many times, especially when he is talking about spiritual things or psychic matters. I appear to be very radiant, as a matter of fact, in order to keep all the aspects under control and to make sure that the energy that flows through Herald is expressed in a most pure way. I prevent actually the thoughts aspects and the emotion aspects from getting attached too much to the energy that flows through Herald. Now, this is Herald 2 again, and I do really feel it's about time now. Although Herald is catching up here again, but let's see. I think I would allow for maybe one or two more questions on your part now.
Actually, it is a good time for us to close now. We have other appointments in the lab that are in fact overdue. So perhaps we should end the session today and hope to continue tomorrow.
I don't think so, as Herald 1 has to leave tomorrow and the other day, the day after tomorrow, I was about to say, but he will be back on Saturday and all next week. So actually, my friend and I, we will have a lot of time to spend with you and to give you maybe a different aspect of what energy and consciousness is all about. Now, I would love my friend here to make maybe a final remark to you and say goodbye, like I do here now. Bye.
Goodbye.
We appreciate your indulgence, your interest, and your support for, again, as we remind you, in order for the 3 points of the triangle and the communications to occur, you are a necessary part of this total phenomena that is occurring. Thank you and a good day.
Thank you very much.
Let me sneak in here again. I just want to make one more point. There might be a time pretty soon where the channel Marie 1, as it were, and Herald 1 might perform not in the booth, but maybe in front of an audience, and pass on some of the knowledge you gained today to this lot too.
That would be very wonderful.
Yeah, let's ask friend how he feels about it. I know, of course, how he feels, but let's ask him to tell you.
that would indeed be a phenomena that would be of great benefit to our first considerations, which is the channels themselves, and through the aspective parts of the channels being reflected in those that would be in the audience. Indeed, we look forward to the experience.
So do I.
And so do all. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
And actually a part of what was happening with Herald, although I still had that one link of individuality of myself, and being a part of him, and in total, it's like when they're speaking through him, it's like a total agreement, almost like a part of what I would be expressing from the other side. And when y'all were conversing, and like I said, I was somewhere in tune with it, and holding that like an observer state, and then the things would be forming in my head. Whenever I would say that the energy spoke, the friends came through, that it had already been there, was there in that sense of time and space, and was like preparing itself according to what was taking place, and then like a pause, and however you can get around time and space with that one. But it was already there, ready to come out in an answer. Or a butt-in, I don't know which was.
Okay. It seemed like the flow back and forth was extremely easy.
The synchronization was
It's easier than before.
Yeah.
And,
You know, I feel just the same as Marie do. I felt that there was a tremendous thing going on. When they said, I would like to be called Herald too, I went, oh no, not again. You know? Because I told you this morning I was puzzled because it sounds so much like I was showing off. And I thought, oh no, not Herald, not anything but Herald. There you were. And I was very much with whatever they said, I experienced quite vehemently in my consciousness. And it was like I don't know how to put this. It was like the I became Herald too. I mean, I really felt like Herald too, being attached to this energy source. And I felt a lot of energy in my body was moving quite vehemently sometimes. And yeah. I was quite amused about the way this Herald 2 put the word, you know, that Herald 1 that was still left watching, was quite amused about the way he was using his words. And I thought, well, you know, what an odd way to talk, going up and down like that.
well, it was a really neat back and forth there. That was just, I gather, is the first or just the beginning as far as what you two can do together with the with those energies, and they're recommending you do it outside the booth. So we're looking forward to that.
I personally feel that I'm sorry vaudeville is dead. we would get an agent and book you guys in the circus. You were just tremendous together today.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments about the session we'd like to have on?
No, I think the only comment is I have a hard time to walk right now. I feel like not quite
well
with
grounded
it.
yet?
No, I think I probably need a cup of coffee and walk or something.
Well, I'll get a Manuela to carry you.
Okay.